A consistent visual language is evident throughout my final semester projects, with particular visual features and stylistic approaches sustained across outcomes. My design practice often draws from modernist sensibilities, marked by a sensitivity to context and environment. I am particularly drawn to the layering of constructed and found materials, an approach that has become fundamental to my creative process and the way I build meaning within my work. My study focuses on three main projects, each exploring the potential of graphic design to nurture connection and evoke shared experiences. My focus was drawn to the intersection of identity, experience, and collaboration in contemporary graphic design. These themes became central to my exploration of how visual communication can be used to construct spaces of emotional and cultural resonance. My 6.3 self-initiated project investigates the relationship between sound and graphic design, both as forms of communication and sensory experiences. It considers how rhythm, form, and industrial settings can be translated visually to create immersive design work. In comparison, a collaborative exhibition booklet for Leeds-based artist Julie McKinley reflects this ethos, employing bold and tactile forms reminiscent of her work to complement the physicality of her abstract practice. Lastly, my personal showreel highlights the role of music in shaping narrative and atmosphere, offering a reflection of how visual information is received, perceived, and felt by the viewer. My self-initiated project began with a proposal to design a brand identity for a conceptual music festival, a unified, multi-platform system spanning print, motion, and digital formats. It stemmed from my fascination with how sound can be visually interpreted through movement, aiming to create atmosphere and evoke emotion. Installation artist Olafur Eliasson stated, "For me, an artwork is never truly finished until it meets the viewer. You, in your engagement with the artwork, complete it. You make it art." This idea of the viewer completing the design is central to my approach. Evoking a positive emotional response is a core goal in my work, beyond simply fulfilling graphic design's functional requirements. This shift allowed me to experiment more deeply with process-led design, motivated by a desire to move away from heavy or sorrowful narratives explored in past work. I pursued a theme that felt open, energetic, and experimental. After a conversation with my father, a former Nottinghamshire coal miner, I became fascinated by the scale and presence of the old powerhouses. With a long-standing appreciation for found textures and industrial architecture, I imagined these sites as the perfect venue for a conceptual open-air electronic music festival, reframing history through celebration. My research into similar events led me to Germany's now-retired Melt Festival, previously held in Ferropolis, the City of Iron, where towering mid-20th century machines formed the backdrop. Inspired by Melt, I visited Clipstone Colliery, home to Europe's tallest headstocks. Following the visit, I began to experiment with a technique I discovered using my home printer. When printing on acetate, the ink remains wet due to the non-absorbent surface, which allows it to be reprinted, creating a unique tactile quality. I drew inspiration from Marv Newland's 2011 short animation CMYK, which uses found materials to celebrate sound, colour, and motion. His combination of dots and shapes appear to dance frame by frame, a quality I aim to mimic. Using photographs I had taken, alongside a 3D online model of the headstocks, I printed 15 sheets to represent frames of the headstocks from a rotating perspective, then photographed and sequenced them into a seamless stop-motion animation. As the project evolved, I realised the initial ambition of building an expansive, multi-platform identity was too broad in scope given the time frame available. While the early stop-motion animations were creatively rewarding, they needed to be developed as they didn't fully translate into a cohesive graphic asset. I shifted focus to developing a more tactile, self-contained festival package, allowing me to preserve the emotional goals of the project while creating something more focused and achievable. Design quality improved, and while the process involved many iterations, these led to stronger, more refined outcomes. I was eager to create a resolved outcome within the field of moving image. As a complementary piece to the festival package, the video functions as a promotional asset designed to elevate the festival's identity. The chosen electrical music provided a rhythmical backbone that reinforced the visuals. Inspired by industrial designer Dieter Rams, who said, "Great design is making something memorable and meaningful," I apply this ethos to moving image. Is the video memorable? With its bursts of pulsating visuals paired with sound, I believe so. Within industry, I see the work aligning with cultural branding, experimental design, and festival identity, spaces where storytelling and engagement are vital. Reflecting on the process, I realise I can become over-invested in technique at the expense of final outcomes. Graphic designer Paula Scher once said, "My work is play, and I play when I design." This really stemmed into my enthusiasm for technique, occasionally distracted from clear communication or time management, and that this was a challenge at points in this project. Still, I view this as a strength, often leading to unexpected outcomes. I can be quite a literal, straightforward thinker when transforming the content of a theme into a developed outcome. I see myself becoming a minimalist that loves drama. As I grow more and more towards the integration of typographic details paired carefully with selected imagery, often forming bold, monochromatic compositions. Moving forward, I aim to better balance exploration with output. This project taught me the importance of iteration, decision-making under constraints, and refining at the right moment. Running as a live brief alongside the course, Leeds-based artist Julia McKinley approached me and a fellow student with the opportunity to design a booklet intended as an extension of her exhibition, Slip Across These Plains, which showcased her process and the journey she travelled through. For this exhibit, McKinley's work shifts away from the external subject matter towards exploring a sculptural language of forms specific to her practice. These forms have become a way of processing the world as she experiences it, an accumulation of moments concretized into something solid. McKinley's practice is spatial. She is interested in how objects and images interact and form connections with the viewer, creating imagined worlds to enter into. A strong implication on the topic of audience interaction was present once again. Unlike all design, this would be another medium which would be handled physically by a wider audience. This was a process which implied the use of organic forms within a minimal composition, assets which I have previously presented to be growing within my practice. A big emphasis on the structure of the booklet was a crucial starting point of the design process. Experimenting with unique folds and representing supplements of work kindly provided by Julia through the booklet's form was our foreseeable aim. A personal inspiration for Julia's practice was artist Ellsworth Kelly, whose works demonstrate unassuming techniques emphasising line, colour and form, similar to the work of Julia herself. Kelly's approach to constructing art was conformed through transition. He states, "The most pleasurable thing in the world, for me, is to see something and then translate how I see it," which is a principle we adapted to when deciding the configuration and construction of the booklet. With specific requests to print the booklets using risograph, extra attention was given to the colour choices and scale of the design, both of which were carefully trialled and tested. Knowing that approximately 200 copies would be produced, we also paid close attention to the design of the fold for the booklet, ensuring it was manageable and could be replicated with consistent quality. As an extension of the exhibition, Julia left the content of the booklet up to us. Using earlier discussed methods by Ellsworth Kelly, we chose to interpret visual fundamental elements that were consistent in Julia's work for ourselves. I found that the most minuscule typography or marks can often be important than the overarching shapes within the design. Designer Charles Eames made groundbreaking contributions within multiple fields of design with a similar outlook. He backs up my perception that the details are not the details, they make the design. We continued selecting details from Julia's notebook sketches and interpretive words plucked from photographs of her work, ultimately finalising the design for her upcoming exhibition. For the Hello brief, I revisited the moving image process by developing a showreel, driven by a growing interest in motion design over formats like digital print. Video software, particularly After Effects and Premiere Pro, offered the flexibility I needed to iterate, refine, and experiment, elements that are fundamental to my creative workflow. This experimental approach allowed me to reframe motion not just as an aesthetic enhancement, but as a tool for storytelling and concept delivery. My work in this area draws inspiration from contemporary motion designers like David Gallar, who is currently a part of the Barcelona-based agency Through Studio. He articulates this shift in thinking. At Through, we treat motion as something implicit within design, not as a complementary tool. We believe that the traditional design paradigm that tries to summarise everything in one image has changed completely. Animation offers a timeline through which to explain concepts through storytelling. Gallar's perspective resonates strongly with my aims. I too see motion not as a decoration, but as a core narrative device. Looking at the wider context, my exploration sits within a broader tradition of kinetic design and experimental film. The works of Sol Bass and Len Lai have pushed the boundaries of how motion can be used to engage and communicate. These practitioners have informed my understanding of timing, rhythm, and how motion can act as both a metaphor and a message. Professionally, this project serves as both a portfolio piece and a visual statement of intent that situates me within the creative industries. However, I do believe that post-submission, I will be looking to enhance areas of the showreel through music choice and the input of new graphics. Reflecting on this semester, I often struggled to define a clear theme, feeling caught between pursuing conceptual coherence and evolving organically from my existing work. I realised that clarity doesn't always come at the start, and that's okay. Not having a fixed emotional narrative challenged me, especially among peers with seemingly solid concepts, but distance has shown me that meaningful work can emerge from uncertainty. My practice this semester explored identity, experience, and collaboration through 3 projects. I investigated how visual design engages the senses through sound, movement, and materiality, while drawing on modernist principles of layering, texture, and contextual awareness. My work emphasises interaction, emotional resonance, and process-led design. I've gained a stronger understanding of balancing experimentation with refinement and the importance of detail in conveying meaning. My theoretical explanations support this, situating my work within experimental, cultural, and modernist design discourses.